Senator Ron Johnson is a member of the Foreign Relations Committee and has been briefed on the situation in Iraq. He is joining us now from Capitol Hill. Senator Johnson, we appreciate your time and thanks for being with us.
Well, Peter, how are you doing?
I want to get a sense from you right now, if you can, tell us about the briefings that you've had on this issue. If you're satisfied with what you've heard from the president and from this administration so far in terms of the solution that they believe is the way forward, at least at this point.
Well, quite honestly, the briefing hasn't revealed much more than anybody, any other American has heard in the press. And that's generally the case with these secure briefings. I think, the cynic in me thinks that sometimes the White House does these things just so the senators can't really talk about, what we hear. But, Peter, this is a tragedy that never had to happen. President Obama came into office. Iraq was largely stable. He should have recognized his job was to maintain that stability and increase it. And of course, what we should have done is left behind a stabilizing force that could have provided influence, pretty well put
Senator
pressure
Johnson,
on Maliki to have a real coalition government. And now Humpty Dumpty's broken, and we'll see whether or not we can put it back together again.
You said the president should have left behind residual forces. When asked about this yesterday, President Obama said the reason we didn't do that was a decision made by the Iraqis. They didn't side.
No, that is incorrect. That's not what I hear from people very close to negotiation. This president was so detached. He had a desire to withdraw from the world, to withdraw from Iraq. He didn't understand the strategic imperative of making sure that we had a stabilizing force so that we could really take advantage of a historic opportunity to have Shia, Sunni, and Kurd work together in a coalition government for shared prosperity. Can you imagine what a phenomenal example that would have set for the Middle East and the rest of the world? But this president decided to bug out, leave all influence or remove all influence of America, and it's just been a real tragedy.
And Senator, do you think that if the president had left residual forces behind, that this situation wouldn't exist? Specifically, that is to say, that ISIS would not have been able to find any stronghold within that country where there was already so much lawlessness, even if you leave behind American forces?
Well, of course, one of the reasons ISIS has shown and grown and gained so much strength is because this president was detached from the events in Syria as well. So again, our president, his policy has been one of apologizing for America and becoming totally detached and withdraw from the world. It's not working out very well, quite honestly.
I want to ask you a question on the topic of Benghazi. We should note as we ask you this question, you were the person who was asking Hillary Clinton that question when she came up with the answer that many people now associate with the debate over this topic. She said, what difference at this point does it make, specifically referring to questions about what she may know about whether this was a protest that had taken place or whether this was some sort of a spontaneous moment that had happened there. So we heard from President Obama this week saying that the U.S. has now taken into custody Abu Khatala, one of the members believed to have been involved behind that deadly attack that night where 4 Americans, including the U.S. ambassador, were killed. Are you satisfied by what you have now seen that this administration, that military officials have been doing to try to clean up the mess that was left behind after that awful disaster?
No, I'm a long way from being satisfied. Listen, I appreciate the fact we've captured one of the terrorists, and we know who others are, but we've captured one. We ought to transfer him to Guantanamo so we can actually detain and get intelligence out of this individual, every ounce of intelligence. But, okay, so we're starting to bring one person to justice. What about holding people accountable in the State Department? How about holding the Secretary of State accountable for her dereliction of duty, not only honoring, not honoring the request for additional security, but actually ramping down security, which put those lives at risk and I think cost 4 Americans their lives.
All right, Senator Johnson, we appreciate your time. Thanks for spending some of it with us, and have a good rest of your Friday.
Have a good day.
For more on the U.S. military